what was said to me matters. I don't know what was said. Um, and to me, it's a nasty situation all the way across the board. I look at like what I look at is overall, a man has lost his life, and a child is now a murderer. Well, I don't want to, is a killer for in layman's terms, and that kid has to live with he killed somebody for the rest of his life. And the world we live in, to some degree, if it's celebrated, he's never going to have that, you know, like to
He's never
or
gonna have that what?
he may be desensitized to it. Like there's a lot of kids who is desensitized to that, to where they never get the thought of killing and what it actually means and what it actually is. It's to take a life off the face of this earth. People play with it and don't realize what it is until after the fact, or even if they do at all. Like it's a lot of these kids out here that will kill you and go get a good 8 hours of sleep.
Well, I want to give some pushback, right? Kids, maybe they kill you and from a literal standpoint, they actually get 8 hours of sleep, right? We're not in any of these kids' minds, so we can never know exactly what they are thinking. But and I hate to make it about him, but I do want to make one point. With King Von, respectfully, there was a documentary that came out, and I watched a little bit of it, a decent amount of it, and essentially it spoke in detail about the different things that he stated on Twitter that he planned on doing. They were cross-referenced files by the police department that proved that he was behind certain murders, et cetera, et cetera. And my point in saying all of this is I don't personally, this is my personal opinion, I don't personally think that he was just okay with doing these things. On exterior, he may have given off that vibrato, but I don't think he was settled in his spirit, because to your point of taking a life, I've heard people who've gone to jail for murder speak about it years later and talk about how reflective they've been, and not just that, but how they maybe couldn't sleep, or how it fucked with them or still fucks with them, or how they still see images, or even people in the military, right? If we take it out of the streets and we take it to the military, where you are trained to do these types of things, these are, the people on the other side are considered the enemy. And if you take a life that way, for veteran soldiers speaking about how psychologically they haven't gotten right because they still see images and all of those things, and from their perspective they were doing the noble thing because they were instructed on being a part of representing their country. So I don't think that it's the safest thing to say that these kids, or that boy in particular, wouldn't have or would be desensitized to it, because I think mentally it's hard to even be in someone else's head. And then just by the testimony of other people who've been in similar situations, I would be more inclined to believe that he might go through some of those emotions versus the other.
Now you're speaking, you just spoke to all of the people who share that sentiment. I was referring to the people who don't share that sentiment. There's a lot of people who, how those people have that feeling. It's a large group of people who don't have that sentiment. They're living in this shit every day. Those are people who came out the picture and had time to reflect. You know what I'm saying? There's people who stay in that mindset, and that's all it is. And that's why what was said matters to me, because I, I there's no, I don't think that there's a right answer to the situation. So I'm not saying this, saying that I could have came up with something better, but to tell your kid to go get the gun is a different type of it's a different type of mindset your kid will have for that act because it was condoned by his parent. And
Correct.
my parent wouldn't put me in that situation. So if my parent told me to do it, I'm doing I don't care what the world says. I'm doing right. And you get what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
my like I always say, like I grew up and you can see a difference in the kids who parents knew they sold drugs. You could see a difference in the kids who parents had idea they sold drugs, and then the kids that held it, like hid it from their parents. Those are three different type of people in their actions and just how they view the world. Like the ones who parents knew, they a different type of ruthless. Most of the time, them be the kids who end up getting killed young, like
Hmm.
to some degree, because there's no stop.
Accountability, yeah, the accountability factor, the consequences or the thoughts of what consequences may be, or any consequences at all, you don't have that same level of fear.
I don't want to
And
say getting killed, my fault. I don't want to misspeak, but those are the ones who end up crashing, like the big crash out. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
That's a better way to put it. Like those are the ones who, where you regress it. I couldn't let my mother see me do it, or I couldn't let my dad catch me do it. So when I went out into the world, I was extra cautious. I had a plan to get out. Those are the ones who, you get what I'm saying?
mhm,
Look long term towards it. So
yeah.
like I hope like just for his own well being, right? Because even within himself, he's gonna wonder when he meet people, do they know what I did? Do they not know? Are they treating me like this? Because he has to process,
A lot.
and then the world still has to process him for that. Like some people are going to cheer him on for it. Like, yeah, you did the right thing. Some people would be like, you get what I'm saying? It's just that's a lot to put on a 14-year-old boy's psyche.
And
And
it's forever change. The weight of it never goes away. It will never go away, in my opinion.
I think I've seen on more than one occasion people who don't even like they just gone. And even if you look at the jails, like the
But
jails will tell you
there's cause and effect to everything, right? So, but why, as you're saying, they're gone, right? But then they either,
what
excuse me, they either start riding out and doing it again and again, or they turn to the bottle, or they turn to drugs, or they turn to maybe treating women a certain way, or like it comes out in different ways, because energy is energy, right? So however individuals process it, that's their personal process. But the energy, like they say, energy cannot be destroyed, it's only transferred. So that energy has to go somewhere. So it has to come out in some way.
no, no,
That
no.
what way is the question?
What I'm speaking is to what that energy is processed as. I'm not speaking to where it's coming out. If it's processed as it's okay behavior, it's going to invoke a whole different type of energy. If it's processed as it's a horrible behavior, it's going to be processed. But I'm saying I just hope that young man gets some type of wherewithal so that he can have somewhat of a normal life moving forward. You know
They
what I'm saying?
they
Because I can imagine what position he's in, right? Like, and he's doing what he's doing because he thinks you get what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
any young man in that situation would react the same way, but just you get what I'm saying. Like, for you to, he took a life and he's gonna have to live with that and process that. So I just hope somebody checks in on him and make sure he good.